Good evening, good evening, good evening. Have we got sound? Have we got vision? We appear to have both. This is a good start, as is the fact that I've had 3 glasses of wine this evening. Good evening, Wobby Wobbit. Good evening, Array of Emotions. Good evening, Phil Mcmill. Good evening, Ryako Music. Wobby says, yay, looking good, Mr. Spock. I've got the hoodie, incidentally. Comes with ears, but that might be a step too far. But we've got Spock on the decks as well. So welcome. It's Sunday, the 4th of October. 5090 done and dusted for another year. We survived. We wrote songs. We had a good time. In fact, we had such a good time that altogether we wrote, according to the landing page of 5090, 4,699 songs since July the 4th. Although if I check the actual count, it appears not all of them have reached the songs page yet. But there are still 4,572 new songs brought into this world as a result of people taking part in 5090, which is a glorious, beautiful thing. So if you were part of 5090, pat yourself on the back, because that is incredible. Gotta give a particularly big shout out this evening to the one and only Cinderella. Cindy Prince, coffee fiend extraordinaire and songwriting machine, produced 223 songs this summer, which is just awe-inspiring. DZD, Dazed and Confused, is here. Indeed, it was a blast. Have done form for a while was my first 5090. I hope you had a good experience. It was a good year. It was quiet. There were actually only 243 active participants during 5090, but for 243 people to come up with nearly 4,700 songs is pretty darn amazing, I have to say. So, yeah, as Ryako Music says, that's crazy. It is a crazy thing, and we all got crazy together, and we all had an absolutely marvellous time. And big shout out to Wobby, who, after on Thursday's show, I said, yeah, I'm done. 65 songs, that's enough. I've overachieved by 35%. Wobby said, you fancy doing one more? And of course, me being me, said, yeah, why not? And it turned out to be quite an interesting little story, because the track that we put together, well, what Wobby wrote, I just did a few voiceover bits and got the proximity effect of the Shure SM7B that I've been enthusing about at great length this summer, in emulating the dulcet tones of BBC Radio London's Jim Davis, who handles the overnight show. And why don't I, Wobby, if you don't mind, I'm just going to play it because it was great fun to do. And there's a story behind it as well. So if we switch to screen 1, I'm just going to start things off with this song, which is by Wobby with guest bits and pieces from me. Good evening, everybody. If you've just joined us, this is Overnight Radio. I'm Rick Lister, and I'll be with you till 5 a.m.
Oh, I like Rick Lister. I find his voice so calming. He's always so disarming, utterly charming.
Let's go back to the phones. Who's next on the line, please?
all walks of life. He puts himself in their shoes, from humorous topics to serious issues.
Nobody should have to go through something like that.
His tone soothes me, his empathy moves me, he's so kind.
Well, of course, and I can totally understand why you're so upset.
I know her, she's another regular, just called in about nothing in particular, greeted with genuine warmth and care.
That must be really difficult for you.
I know this one, her name's Penelope. It's like eavesdropping on her therapy. Neither of them really seem to mind.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
His tone soothes me, his empathy moves me, he's so kind.
Well, who would wish that on anybody?
Here's that bloke making an appearance, sharing his burden as he tells of his experience. It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe that somebody would do such a thing.
Comforting the sad with conversation shared across the entire nation.
The saying goes that things never change, but don't you think in these circumstances perhaps they should?
His tone soothes me, his empathy moves me, he's so kind.
Seem to be a few technical difficulties there, but we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Sometimes there are glitches, technical hitches, but he's fine.
Well, it seems we've lost you for the moment, but we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. In the meantime, here's this.
Oh, here he is, that opinionated pig. Every time he calls in, he has to have a dig.
That's a challenging point of view, but do you agree with it? Let's hear your calls.
His tone soothes me, his empathy moves me, he's so kind.
Sometimes we lose track of things and forget that what we really need is compassion.
Oh, well said, Rick Lister.
This is Overnight Radio. I'm Rick Lister, and we'll be back after the news to take some more of your calls. Did you like that? I thought that was rather delightful. Much kudos to Wobby for writing that. Ryako Music says, well said, Rick. Wobby says, oh. And, of course, Wobby quite rightly let Jim Davis, who was the inspiration for Mr. Lister and Overnight Radio, and just generally the tone of that song, that she'd written a song about him. And I was rather chuffed when not only did Jim respond to Wobby's initial tweet and liked it, we also ended up with this. I was so made up, absolutely chuffed to bits with that. Celebrity endorsement or what? I shall just rest on my laurels for the rest of the month. I rather liked that. And yeah, my rates are quite reasonable, and me and my Shure SM57 are available for voiceover and audiobook work should you have a need for it. Wobby says, oh, and he sent a lovely reply to me. I didn't see one. That's I'm really glad he did. That's lovely. Ryako Music says, that's so sweet. Phil Mcmill says, that's great. Array of Emotion says, I hope that made your week a bit better. Yeah, last week I had the week from hell, and I slept for 12 hours last night because it's kind of been that kind of weekend. I'm just run down and the tank is dry. Wobby123 says, stunned and hugely flattered. To have inspired creativity in others is truly humbling and also so exciting. Such a fun song too. I was smiling all the way through it. Thanks so much, Jim. That is glorious. Wobby, that's absolutely beautiful. And I mean, even just listening to enough of his show to get the tone so I could do the voiceover, it was clearly obvious that the guy is lovely and has his head screwed on. So that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And what a finish to 5090 to have a response like that. That's absolutely glorious. I'm tearing up. But that might be with the wine. So that was Overnight Radio. On Thursday, I mentioned I'd been doing a whole bunch of stuff that, remember we were talking about EQ and reverb, and I'd gone back and actually fiddled about with a couple of tracks that weren't really in a shape that I really liked it. Good evening, Atitlan66, late again. Don't worry, mate. Hello. Thanks for joining us. Dazed and Confused says, haha, yeah, just the wine and allergies. Indeed. I'm on the orange juice now because I have to look after my kidneys, and 3 glasses of wine is about 100% more than I normally have. But don't let that stop you kicking off the 5090 after party. Because let's face it, with 4,699 songs over 90 days created by 243 active participants, that is something worth celebrating. It really is. Good evening, one and all. What are we going to do tonight? Well, kind of just winging it, really, as I normally do in these things. What I wanted to do was basically throw it open to you guys, because a lot of you guys are songwriters. A lot of you guys have posted stuff to 5090. And one of the first things I'm going to do, so we've played one by Wobbit. I think really we ought to play one by Phil. And there is a song by Phil that I really liked. Phil's stuff this year is, you've really been stretching out, mate. And it's been really interesting seeing where you were taking it, especially as I was talking a couple of months ago about a software site called Plogue, Plogue, who are the people responsible for the Sforzando free VST plugin that lets you use SFZ or SFZ files of virtual instruments. So Plogue's Sforzando is what I used for the War Tubers. Do you remember those a while ago? And as Phil has said in the chat, I discovered Alter Ego and had a lot of fun with it. You certainly did. And by an almost perfect coincidence, what I'm going to play is your track Hunky Dory, which features Plogue Alter Ego with the Mary Ork backup singer voice, which is kind of a Vocaloid, but it's very French. So here we go. This is Hunky Dory by Phil Mcmill.
Take your shoes off, sit down and relax, let your mind go, forget about the maniacs, don't
Hunky Dory by Phil Mcmill. I really like Alter Ego's tone on there. I mean, it's a cracking song. Atitlan says definitely very 80s. And yeah, I'd agree with that, but very, very much my sort of thing. I really enjoyed that when I first heard it, so I thought I'd play that tonight. Very definitely. And as Atitlan says, yeah, very different feel to it. Indeed. So both of the one of the what I want to talk about is just, I mean, the whole point of doing these things is finding out what works for people. And what I love about both of those tracks is that not only were there some really nice liner notes explaining how the song came about, but also the lyrics are posted. And one thing that I would emphasize if you're taking part in 1590, and if you're selling your stuff online, whether it's Bandcamp or some other platform, or even just hosting it on SoundCloud, people tend to remember lines of lyrics that stick in their head, and they may have forgotten who recorded the song or even what the song was called. But if they can remember a line in the song, then they're going to type that line into text search in Google. And if you've not uploaded your lyrics on the hosting site, then Google isn't going to be able to make the connection between the song and your lyrics, and they won't be able to find you. So from that, please post your lyrics. And apart from anything else, I'm an old git. My hearing and my vision, and believe me, even with my new glasses, my vision, are not what they used to be. So having lyrics on the screen in front of me that I can follow as I'm listening to the song really helped me understand. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Mondegreens phenomenon, as in Lady Mondegreen, because that the whole misheard lyrics thing has become a bit of a meme. And I have a little paperback book in the other room of cartoons based on misheard lyrics. And the book is called "Excuse Me While I Kiss This Guy." And of course, the Hendrix track, Purple Haze, the line is actually, "Please excuse me while I kiss the sky." And again, Mondegreens came because somebody thought it was singing about a woman called Lady Mondegreen, but it was all about the death of a knight, and his squires laid him on the green. So, misheard lyrics. I used to do it an awful lot. It took me the best part of 25 years to figure out what Adrian Bellew was singing in Elephant Talk. And to be honest, that was not exactly a hard thing, because the first verse is words that begin with A, second verse is words that begin with B. You get the idea. Ray of Emotion says, my favourite misheard lyrics are Meshuggah singing about how they like juice. It is a thing, but it's only a thing because people don't have access to the proper lyrics. And again, with my eyesight, even if the lyrics are supplied in the little booklet that goes in a CD, and yes, I do buy CDs. I'm old, I'm reactionary, I don't kind of do streaming. You know, it's not really my sort of thing. So I like having a physical object when I buy an album, and I actually have to either resort to scanning them in and blowing them up so I can see the booklet on my screen, or using a magnifying glass. That's how sad I am. I now have a special pair of reading glasses that are for close-up work, and I don't struggle quite as much. But have you seen the font size that they use in CD booklets? It's tiny. Dazed and Confused says, some of my favourite tunes I like better, however I've misheard. There is that. And there are songs kicking around that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, were actually inspired by misheard lyrics. Wobby says, tiny CD print. Yeah, I have no chance with those. Me too. Ryako Music says, I like getting a brand new sex thing. Right, okay, what? Is this a James Brown misheard lyric or something else? You're gonna have to throw that one at us, Mill. Array of Emotions says that's one thing vinyl has going for it. Oh goodness me, yes. One of the reasons that I am such a music nerd is the fact that I'm old enough to have started off buying music when it was on LP format, and LPs were a thing of beauty. You know, it was a thing at school that you earned kudos and points by having memorized every single line, every single copyright notice of the albums that you bought. And back in the day, record companies would actually play to that. There are the sleeve notes for the original release of Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield bore a little caption, tiny little print on the back of the sleeve that said, this stereophonic record can be played on monophonic systems. However, it cannot be played on old tin boxes, no matter what they are fitted with. If you are in possession of such equipment, please hand it in to the nearest police station. Hey, it was the 70s. That was how we did things back then, kids, and we're proud of it. Ryako Music says, right, got a brand new 6-string by Bryan Adams. Of course, summer of 69. Atitlan 66 used to love having the credits after each song of who played each instrument, who did backing vocals, etc., etc. Some of those are, I mean, like Paul Simon's Graceland, as I was talking about on Thursday, would actually tell you which recording studios each session was recorded at, which I thought was lovely, especially when I discovered that my brother's in-laws lived in one of the towns in Louisiana where some of the recording sessions for Graceland took place. How cool is that? Learning point number 1 for this 5090 is please add your lyrics to the songs you post, because poor old senile gits like me really struggle trying to make out stuff, and especially when you're being a little bit adventurous with the mix and maybe mixing the vocals really low down or distorted, or in Johnny Cashpoint's case, hello Johnny Cashpoint, even reversing them so that they sound like grunted death metal lyrics, which is brilliant. It really does help us, and it will help your music to be found if you take the step of putting it online and putting it on places like Bandcamp. And Bandcamp themselves actually have a little thing, if you hover the mouse over the lyrics box when you're filling out the details for each song in whatever format you're going to release on Bandcamp, it says, well, why bother with lyrics? And they explain, as I have just done, that people do search Bandcamp for lyrics. And if your lyrics are there, they can be found, and people will then buy your music. Hurrah! That's kind of what all this is about. Dazed and Confused says, yeah, and that and the album art alone worth me buying something physical as opposed to a stream. I never felt like I actually bought something. Yeah, me too. I've got some Devon Townsend releases that kind of they were only ever released on like about 500 CDs. So the chances of me ever getting one are minute, but he has put those albums available online to buy as streams, and I have done so. Array of Emotions might be interested in this. I saw this evening the video for War from the upcoming Devon Townsend Empath Tour gig that was recorded last November-ish at the Roundhouse in London, and it looks and sounds fantastic. So Array of Emotion says, yep, seen it, thought so, good man. It looks brilliant. I can't wait for this. I have my order in already, and I think it comes out the tail end second half of this month. Could be wrong. David, help me out. When's it come out? I've a feeling it's something like the 25th or so. Array Motion says the new band sounds pretty chill. There are some amazing musicians in that band, and I really hope that when all of this madness and insanity goes away and we can go out and enjoy live music again, that he sticks with that band, because goodness me, they're good. Right, other learning things I wanted to talk about. I've got my notes here. I have, as I said on Thursday, been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I've been watching Christian Henson's YouTube videos about orchestral scoring as a sort of tie-in with the Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package. And I found a YouTube channel this afternoon, because YouTube has now, as its algorithm is wont to do, noticed that I'm kind of becoming obsessed with orchestral scoring. So it threw a YouTube video at me this afternoon by, well, the channel is called Modern Film Composer. I got very excited when I watched it and subscribed and clicked like, as I'm hoping, if you haven't already done and you're watching this on YouTube, you will do. Please subscribe by clicking on the little button at the bottom and click like to give me nice feedback on the less shambolic and pause-free version of this show that actually ends up on YouTube. But anyway, Modern Film Composer, young guy in his home studio, talking about how he approaches modern film scoring. And the video that YouTube threw at me is him recreating Time, which is the main focus of the score from Inception, composed by Hans Zimmer. So, as the guy in the video points out, the sessions for recording the score to Inception cost, I think, somewhere in the region of $1 million. And this guy's done it in Logic Pro with a bunch of plugins, including Albion and Contact and a whole bunch of other things. Check it out. It's well worth watching. But unfortunately, that was the last video to be posted on the channel, and the channel has been silent since December 2017. So it's a great shame, because I was really hoping that there would be more really interesting content to watch. But one of the things that he explained or mentioned during his mixing session of all this stuff was another free VST plugin. And this one, and I haven't actually played with it yet, because I literally downloaded it earlier this evening. It's called Luftikus. It's a digital, well, I mean, you can read it there. Luftikus is a digital adaptation of an analog EQ with fixed half-octave bands and additional high-frequency bands. What I like are the fact that those bands are pretty much the main 6 bands, because you can tune that, are the main 6 bands that your ears respond to. So you've got the real low stuff that you feel rather than hear. You've got the 40 hertz real bass, 160 hertz boom, 640 hertz, which is main vocals, 2.5 kilohertz for presence, and then everything up to 40 kilohertz for your for your high end and your air. So Luftikus, 6-channel EQ, absolutely free. Go download it. Should be really interesting. Mel's now going to ask me if it's available for Mac, isn't it? And I'm going to say, you'll be delighted to know that if you go to the KVR audio page for it, you can download it as a 64-bit plugin for your macOS. So, and Phil says, yes, available for Mac. There you go. So that's my recommendation for this evening is Luftikus. What else have I learned this year? Well, if I go to my profile page and just have a look at which songs got the comment, I really noticed that if I came up with a decent title, that was going to get people listening to the song far more than if I was just trying to be clever. And the fact that I had Mel guesting on one of my tracks obviously had a tremendous influence on whether a song got listened to or not. And as you can see, it took me a good week and a half to get anywhere near the same number of listens for anything else that I put together. Rev Emotion says, Björk and Kirk. Wobby says, yep, totally agree with that. That one is a classic. Ryako very humbly says, I'm like nobody. Dazed and Confused says, yeah, I love that Björk and Kirk track. Was amazing. And come on, guys, I think we should listen to it one more time because I'm not going to give up the opportunity to listen to this again. So this is clearly a title that appealed to people, but even more, Mel's Björk impersonation is wickedly spot on. So here we go.
Hi, my name is Björk, and I am here with my friend Captain Kirk. And we are here to sing about how much we love space.
Space. The final frontier.
When it is night, I can look at the stars in the sky and wonder how many spaceships are passing me by above us.
Spark, do you see that? It's some sort of alien swan hybrid.
I dream of beautiful plants in outer space, thinking of alien creatures, a different race and me.
What do you mean you can't see it, Spark? It's right in front of you. It's trying to communicate.
Oh, to be somewhere exploring the galaxy. Oh, what a marvelous adventure that would be.
Greetings. I'm Captain James Tiberius Kirk of the USS Enterprise.
Yes, I know
We
that.
come in peace.
Hello? Is he speaking Icelandic?
I'm afraid there seems to be something wrong with the universal translator. I can't understand what you're saying.
What?
But why can I hear pianos? Strange, haunting, beautiful music.
I think he's hearing things.
Who's playing the glockenspiel? Bones. I'm having some sort of
Captain Kirk, no.
episode. I'm enjoying it.
I think he's been drinking.
Getting a uncontrollable urge to burst into song. What's happening?
I think you're being crazy.
Mr. Scott,
I thought I was crazy.
Uhura, Mr. Sulu, Chekhov, Spock. That other guy that's always standing in the background.
Oh my god.
You hear it too, don't you? I can tell by the look on your faces. Why don't you join me in the chorus? It goes.
Space.
Space.
Is
It's a wonderful place.
Place made for you.
Made for you. And
Me.
me. And even Mr. Spock.
No, I don't like him.
That remains quite glorious. I absolutely love that, doing that, and the fact that Mel could drop an entire sentence into the dramatic pauses that Kirk is so prone to. Just nailed it. Absolutely brilliant. So thank you, Mel, for doing that and doing all the donkey work as well. I just, again, showed up and did the occasional voiceover. So Attilan66 says, can listen to that over and over. Indeed, it is rather wonderful. Again, there are plenty of tags on this particular song, and I noticed that it's not just titles that make a difference, it's tags that make a difference. And especially if you're searching for a song by tags on the song page of 5090, the number of songs that I have listened to purely on the basis that they've got song tags that have made me laugh, and then absolutely loved what I was listening to. It's hundreds of them, easily hundreds of them. Taggy stuff. Knock yourself out. Have fun with your tags. Januarius joins us. Hello to Januarius over in Finland. Hello to you, sir. Ryako Music says, thanks for giving me your best, Kirk. That was huge. I'm going to play you a couple of tracks that I did this 5090 that now sound very different from what they sounded like at the time. So remember, I was talking about how you need to EQ your signal going into your reverb because it kind of gets chewed up if you don't, because it stomps all over everything. So you cut the lows out of your reverb signal, cut the highs out to a certain extent as well. And the track that I was really having problems with and discovered after realizing that I hadn't followed my own advice last week on the stream, that the track really just was a bit of a mess, was my Arthur Daley tribute to George Cole called Dodgy Geezer. And I went back to it yet again after saving the fixed version on Thursday's show, and I've pulled it apart again. I eventually decided that maybe a pub skiffle band in the East End of London wouldn't necessarily have a prog metal drum kit drummer with thousands of cymbals and about 18 different floor toms. So I've gone back to brushed drums. I also radically pulled apart the mix, and you remember I was saying Protoverb is a bit of a bear to deal with because you can't really control it properly. So I went back through Protoverb out of the window, and I'm now using just Neutron's own, not Neutron's, Ableton's own big room. I tuned the pre-delay. Remember I was saying how you tune the pre-delay so that the drum, the reverb pre-delay actually drops in the beat effectively. So I did an awful lot of fiddling about. Remember as well, and I think Atislan, it was you who said, Gordon Bennett, that's noisy, when I'd just got the track sitting here with nothing going on at all. And if I click that, you can still see it's there. I found out what it is. It's Arturia's emulation of the Hammond B3. Because if I kill the B3, it goes away. It's the noise circuit on the Leslie rotary speaker emulation in the Hammond, because the Leslie being a box about a metre cubed with a big loudspeaker on a vertical spindle that is literally just spinning round inside the box. That's what a Leslie speaker is. The mechanical and mains noise from that speaker is what was cropping up in Neutron's equalizer there. So as I'd done on Thursday's show, I've really cut down the bottom end, everything below about 300 hertz. I've effectively killed. I did a few more tweaks. I upped the reverb on the guitar. I think I added some on a couple of the other tracks, and as a result, I think it's now at a point. I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind again, but after mix number 7-ish of this, I'm really a lot happier with how it sounds, with one exception. I am blowed if I'm going to let not finding the Arthur Daley "Stick with me, Terry, and the world's your lobster" quote. I've been through Vimeo, I've been through YouTube, I've been through the Minder fan site, can't find it anywhere. So I've taken extreme measures. I found that you can pick up all 7 seasons of Minder that featured Dennis Waterman on DVD for about 15 quid. So I've ordered them, and I will go through each episode of Minder, because that's a joy to watch them anyway, and find the episode with "Trust Me, Terry, Stick with me, and the world's your lobster" on it, and that will replace the current sample that I've got. But George Cole is now following me, despite the fact that he's dead, because last night I sat down to watch my new, just remastered, hot off the press version of Jerry Anderson's show UFO, which is about aliens taking over the world. And look there. First bloody episode I sat down to watch, which is called Flight Path. And it stars George Cole. I had no recollection whatsoever that George Cole was in UFO. And it was like, oh my God, when he cropped up. I really could not believe the coincidence that he cropped up. And is that a bad haircut or what? Seriously. No wonder Arthur Daley wore a hat. That's all I'm going to say at this point. So this is the 7th version of Dodgy Geezer. And this is the version that is now 95% there, but just you just have to imagine the correct Arthur Daley quote in the middle. Here we go.
They seek him here, they seek him there. I know it's such a cliche, but they seek him everywhere. Every dodgy geezer has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade away. You've got to watch your cash, you'll have it in a flash. He's not the boss, he's not even third. He didn't take a break in Spain, 'cause he was doing bird. Has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade away. You've got to watch your cash, you'll have it in a flash.
But you've got to learn some business sense, Wally. Get investors. Use other people's money. That is what made this country great.
Every dodgy geezer has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade away. You gotta watch your cash, he'll have it in a flash. Always pays his debts, believes that's what you do. Thinks that he is loved, but he's a villain through and through. Every dodgy geezer has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade away. You gotta watch your cash, he'll have it in a flash.
Good evening, Belinda. Thanks for joining us. Hello, hello. I loved that. Has a sort of smoky, dodgy East End pub feel to it. Yanoeris says, love the yellow vocals. Haha. Wobby says, sound fantastic. Oh, thanks, guys. I think that Wobby says, so right, lots of talk about the Hammond, and I want to show you something which I discovered this week and will probably only be of interest to you if you have a control surface like the Push, but it was something that has been bugging me, and it's like there has got to be an easy way of doing this, and it's to do with that Leslie cabinet. So what it is that I wanted to be able to control the Leslie cabinet on the B3 emulation with the push, or more specifically with the little controllers at the top of the push. And it turns out there's a really silly, really simple, really very easy way of doing it. So this is the control box for the B3, the Arturia V collection, B3. And you see this little triangle here. If I tip that way, there's a little button on it that says configure. And it opens up the box of the plugin, and then I can literally click on any of the controls. Say I want to click on one of the drawbars. I just click on it. Oh no, it's not going to do it now, is it? If I go to the effects, we'll do it this way. So say I want to change the dry-wet mix of the Leslie. Click on that. Did you see that? A little box appeared on the controls there, and on the push, I now have 3 control parameters which I can change. So I can change the dry-wet mix now on the Hammond as I'm playing the track. So if I solo it and just play through and twiddle the controller, you can hear the difference. So again, no rotary speaker. Lots of rotary speaker, running slow. And there's running fast. And that's a control that you had on a real B3, and they've actually modelled those controls on the user interface of the B3, because if I close the effects panel down, you can see they're there. Slow, fast, stop, run. So that's how you drove the different controls of the Leslie on the B3. The Korg M3 there has a Hammond on it, and I can do exactly the same thing on the Hammond. So let me show you on the Hammond. On the Korg M3, it's done through the white joystick on the left-hand side of the keyboard. Let me just call up a Hammond and I'll show you. So the sharp-eyed of you may have noticed that I actually whacked that joystick over a few times in the opening credits to the show. And that's kind of what I was doing. I was getting the Leslie to kick in to lift the B3 tone above the rest of the track for that part of the song. Yanomaris says, man, I would never finish any songs if I had to get out of my chair to do it. Can you do a John Lord Fireball tone with tons of distortion? Oh, you want distorted Hammond? That do you? That do you? Yeah, Black Knight is a fantastic song. Yanuera says, I have also played the drums in another DP cover band. Are you familiar with the Deep Purple cover band known as Funky Junction, who brought out a single album of Deep Purple covers in, I think it was about 69, 70-ish? And yes, I do have a copy of the album. Funky Junction were actually Thin Lizzy. True story. Anyway, total squirrel there. So I think that song, apart from the Arthur Daley quote, which I will be working on when my Minder collection of DVDs arrives and I find which I can't even find which. There are 7 seasons of the show and I can't even find which. Well, there's 7 seasons of the show with Dennis Waterman playing Terry. There were a lot of other seasons of the show that carried on once Dennis Waterman left, but let's not talk about those, shall we? They really weren't as good. They really weren't. It was the double act between George Cole and Dennis Waterman that really were something special. So I will at some point revisit this with the appropriate quote from Minder in it, although there are so many quotes. And Dazed and Confused said how dedicated I was. Really, watching Minder is not dedication. It's just so much fun. Dazed and Confused also said, beats having to lug a Leslie and a Hammond anywhere. Really, no noticeable audio difference to me, unless you were side by side to them. I don't think anyone noticed. Not to mention how hard a Leslie is to record. Yeah, and move. They are not subtle pieces of kit, but great fun. There's just something special. I mean, it is a mechanical phaser. That's all a Leslie is. It's the phase difference between the speaker at the bottom of the cabinet that's pointing at you and the variation in distance from the speaker that's pointing away from you and spinning around. It's a phaser. It's just one of the most gloriously over-engineered ways of getting phase distortion that I can think of, which is brilliant. Ryako Music says, set phasers to stun. Yes, exactly. That is the only logical course of action, isn't it? Sorry, I couldn't resist, says Mel. I hope you're ashamed of yourself. I think you should be. Dazed and Confused says, I'm loving your dedication to track down a sample from a show I've never even heard of. Arthur Daley was a East End wannabe gangster who was just so gloriously thick and inept, but didn't realise it, and just had one dodgy business scheme after another, and he basically paid the Dennis Waterman character, Terry, who was Arthur's minder, to look after him and fend off all the irate former customers who'd paid the price of doing business with Mr. Daley at some point in the past. And it's hilarious. It's just, despite it being sort of East End gangland, it's just so gentle and so lovely. And the two main characters are so endearing. And you just know everything's going to go painfully wrong. It's well worth tracking out if you can find a copy of it. They're actually showing the later shows on one of the British Freeview channels at the moment, but I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, moving on. So I was tweaking another track of mine this week that, again, I'll listen to it on the monitors and I'm kind of happy with it enough to upload it to 5090. And then I've just got a little MP3 player, and when I'm trying to unwind and decompress before I go to sleep at night, I'll just listen to what I've done on headphones as an MP3 and give them another quality check. And Dodgy Geezer really wound me up, because it was like, no, that's not right. Oh, no, that's not right either. And the other one that really, really started bugging me when I listened to it on headphones, because headphones really do show up. The slightest thing that's wrong will immediately stand out. And I came up with this song, and I apologise for the atrocious pun, which is almost as bad as Mel's jokes, which is called Whinge of Song. And the reason I put Whinge of Song together was that I realised that in the course of this summer, I downloaded 3 completely separate choir free VSTs. And again, this is Mel's fault, because Mel played me, was it Olympus, Mel? That wonderful choral plugin that you were using. And it was like, well, what have I got that can do that? And the main one that I found was a free plugin from Spitfire Audio called Labs. And I have raved about the Labs plugins before. They are all brilliant. They're your fault, because it's like, I want to be as good as you are. Yes, it's Olympus, she says. You just inspire me to push my arrangements in directions that they wouldn't normally go in. So, I mean, like the orchestral percussion and stuff that you've got, it's like, I've so got to find a way of doing that. For the Metropolis scoring this week, it was like every time you dropped an instrument in, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I've got to be able to do that. I want to use those sounds in my. I want to be able to use those sounds in my stuff. And as it turns out, I actually found 3 really interesting plugins. The first one is the Spitfire Audio one, which is just called Choir. And if I enable the right track and play it on. So the original version had a little bit of reverb on it. This now has one of my go-to reverbs, which is Max for Live's Convolution Reverb Pro, and I've picked a real place because it has a set of different categories of impulse responses that you can use. And I'm using the Hamilton Mausoleum, which is a real place. It's a circular mausoleum for a bunch of the Hamiltons, and it was, up until the discovery of the inch and down oil storage tanks, the most reverberant place in the natural world, well, in the human constructed world. So I got rid of me Oriel River reverb, which wasn't reverberant enough, and dropped that in as the A send on this. So I've got the Labs Choir. I've also got the Sonatina Choir, which is another downloadable free VST. And you have gentlemen or ladies or both. And I'd separated them out, but I'd got my release. In other words, what the individual notes do when the note stops, slapped right down to 0. And boy, does that show up on headphones as being wrong, 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 wrong. So if I pick the ladies, so this is the ladies, and just have, you see, I've got that wound up. I had it there. So listen how the note stops when I stop it. And it sounded so wrong on headphones. Let's go up an octave. Ryako Music says, I'd be impressed if there was a castrati category. Really, all you need to do is just go up far enough with the ladies, to be honest. Listen. Januarius says, is the snapping from the sonatina? Yes, it is. Well spotted. That was the other thing that was really bugging me when I was using headphones. So I slammed the release way over to the right and listened to the difference. Suddenly it sounds completely convincing, and I was just gobsmacked how something that easy to fixed as much as it did. So I immediately went back to all the other ones and had a look at the third plugin I have, which is the Nst Choir. And again, that's high, medium and low. And you'll notice I've got the release on that set fairly slow, not overly so, but fairly slow. And the other thing I did was that the women sounded wrong because, as Ryako had observed, I was pushing them more into castrati range. Wasn't working. So let me play you the revised version of this, because I'm now rather pleased with the result. And yes, the bass is my favourite monophonic synth of the moment, the one that's based on the models of a coupled two-body pendulum. And this is what it sounds like. This is called Whinge of Song. Hi, Belinda. Hopefully we'll still be here when you get back. I think we may be. I've got quite a lot of other stuff to cover as well. So I was rather pleased with the revised version of that, because all of these things, I'm getting to the point, and I tend to do this to the end of 5090, that I get picky about stuff. I have this sort of initial burst of enthusiasm and confidence in what I'm doing, that it's kind of working, and then I dip, and then as September starts and the end gets into sight, the confidence picks up again, and I usually go through, you remember I was saying last month, I go through like a purple patch of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, that'll do. And then I get another slightly lower dip, sort of mid-September. And then at the end, I usually get one or two that I think, yeah, definitely going to keep that. And when I get to that stage, everything I do, even if it's not one of the keepers, I will tend to really, really obsessively work on, because I want it to be as good as it can get. And it doesn't always turn out that way, but a lot of the time it does. So yeah, that one took a bit of work, it has to be said, to bully it to the point where it really, really satisfied me. It's as simple as that. And yeah, so I've played you 2 tracks of mine. So I think it's about time that we played somebody else's music. So I'm going to go to something by Dazed and Confused, which I have carefully queued up here, which is also working with our American friend Used to Know. So this one is, you're going to have to talk me through this. This is one of the ones that uses Just Cola Buzz, isn't it? Mr. Confused. I'm being Mr. Confused, but I'm going to play you this one because I liked this at the time, and it's called Space Kitty.
You give a mouse a cookie and put a hat on the cat. Will they both clean my house? Or does the dog fit into that? Thing 1 and thing 2, how Pandora's box they came. Have a cat and a bomb. Let's see how he likes this game. Into the box with the cat. I'll wear the outcome board. Float away, I bet. Stupid cat. No regard to gravity. The hotel up ahead with a vacancy. Now just a final round that puts this imaginary number key.
So there we go. That was Schrodinger's stuffed kitty rides the intergalactic space Elkalope while checking into the Infinity Hotel, Part 1. So something very, very different. Dazed and Confused has been talking about Jescola Buzz, which is, our resident Jescola expert is on 5090 is Candle. And he does things with Jescola that completely do my head in. What is it? Well, it's... Yeah, what is it? It defies description. It's like a generative net. So it's not really a modular synth. I know why that's... Let me just enable Jescola in no script, so it will actually do things now. There we go. So it lets you chain and interconnect different elements into networks, and effectively you, as Dazed and Confused says, it's a DAW, it's a tracker sampler, it's nutty, haha. Indeed, look at it. It's more like a mind map than anything else. These are all noise sources, I guess. So noise sources in blue, effects processors in yellow, and then everything goes into the master track, which then spits it out as your rendered track. Absolutely mad as a box of frogs. And I thought that might appeal to you, Array of Emotions. Array of Emotions says that actually looks pretty cool. It's a spider web and you're getting your ass trapped, says Ryako Music. I think both reactions are probably true. It is a most bizarre piece of software, but as you've heard in that track, and if you track Candle's stuff down on 5090, he does stuff with that, an Offender Strat, and I just sit there going, I have absolutely no idea how this is happening, but I like the results because it's kind of that sort of software. That's what I love about 5090, really, is that there are people who are just singing and playing a ukulele recording it on their phone. There are people doing that, and then they might, if they've got an iPhone, get the phone in voice memo. I don't know if any of you have done this. There are ways you can, or you just record a track on your iPhone and it will automatically add drums, because that's the insane level of technology that we are at the moment. Januaris says, I love that so many people use Discover. Yeah, and again, this is from just having boxes, and Burr Settles uses a full-on tabletop modular gig. So he's got, some really, really nice, like a Dread box and various other bits and pieces into Euro rack modules, and he just pushes buttons and manipulates things and sequences. And you've got that, and you've got the virtual version of it with Jescola Buzz, and you've got nerds like me with, stuff that we bought in the 80s, right the way through to, as Januaris says, people using the Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package, which if you have a DAW and you haven't filled out Spitfire Audio's questionnaire to get a free emulation virtual instrument of an entire, or not just any old entire symphony orchestra, the BBC Symphony Orchestra recorded at, I think it was Air Studios in London. So it's a really, really professional setup. Downloads less than 1/4 gigabyte. I certainly didn't think I'd be building full-on orchestral scores. I mean, that's got a nice orchestra, but you just play it and you don't really have any control over which bits of the orchestra that it plays. Phil Mcmill says, I just got the BBC Symphony Orchestra a few days ago. It's excellent. It really is. Phil, you will have so much fun with this. You really will. Januaris says, I just decided I'll buy the Spitfire Symphony Orchestra. It's €1,700, but damn, I want it so bad. Just got to fill some piggy banks. Atitlan says, head first only, indivisible, hunter of all the immortals. Okay, mate. Right. Good. So, yeah, I love the fact that there is just this massive, massive variation in what people are doing this year, more than any other year. You know, there are people who have always just been guitar, bass and drums, and then suddenly they've got cellos. Or, you know, a complete horn section will suddenly drop into somebody's songs. And I've been doing that. It's just so much fun. It really is so much fun. And with that, I'm going to play another track from somebody else, and this time we're gonna go to Atitlan. So he's given me 3 songs of his to choose from, and I think I'm going to go with Hunter, which is an instrumental and it's an electronic track. And this is what it sounds like. So that was Hunter by Atitlan. Much too short. I could have listened to another couple of minutes of that. Lots of, I mean, what's not to like? It's just one really, really, really delicious synth patch after another. And as Fuzzy commented on the comments on the 5090 site, it sounds like, you know, some sort of robot assassin in a very, very high-end video game that's coming after you. And I hear rumours that the early stages of development over at Disney of a Tron 3, and that's the kind of vibe that Tron 3 needs to stick. January says that could have been from Portal 2. Yeah, that would fit too. And we'd need GLaDOS doing the vocals of that rather than Vocaloid. Ryako Music says there's a Tron 3. Well, it's like I say, it's in the early stages of development, and the Disney execs that got asked about it were kind of, well, I'm not saying there's not going to be a Tron 3, but yeah, Titlan says there's rumours, and January says, do they have Bruce Boxleitner? Yeah, they need Bruce Boxleitner. Not sure they need Garrett Hedlund, to be honest. But the thing that bugged me about Tron Legacy, and it could have been so good, but they didn't spend the money on it. And you can really tell when they didn't spend the money on it every time that young Jeff Bridges appears on screen. Like the opening credits. I went and saw it at the pictures because I was so excited that there was going to be another Tron. Went and saw it at the pictures, and that opening scene where Jeff Bridges is saying goodnight to his son before stuff gets real, and the director carefully frames each shot that Jeff Bridges' character is in, so you can't see his face. And it's like, oh dear, I know what's happened here. They've tried to do young Jeff Bridges, and it's not gone according to plan. And it turned out I was right, especially when they eventually, about an hour into the film, have to show you young Jeff Bridges, and it looks like he's just escaped from, well, something like Far Cry or that level of rendering. And what really bugged me about it was that kind of about the same time Ant-Man came out. And I don't know if you've seen the Marvel movie Ant-Man, but there is a sequence at the beginning of Ant-Man, which is the this is how we got to where we are type of plot development. And it's the Michael Douglas character falling out with S.H.I.E.L.D. in about 1989. So they have Michael Douglas on screen in a movie shot in whenever it was, 2017-ish. And he looks exactly like he looked in Wall Street. And the camera does close-ups on him. And he has to act in close-up as 1989 version Michael Douglas. And it's not uncanny in the sense of the uncanny valley that you're watching a human face and going, oh, there's something wrong there. It's you watch that sequence and you think, oh, well, yeah, that's just Michael Douglas. You don't remember that Michael Douglas is now a good 35, 40 years older than he was when he appeared in Wall Street. And that team, who are, I think it's mainly, they're called Lola Visual Effects. They're based in Los Angeles. They do an awful lot of work that is effectively digital plastic surgery on stars to make them look younger. They gave a fairly well-known American actor who does adventure movies a digital six-pack that he hadn't got in real life. They will take inches off actors and actresses' waistlines. They will give them little chin tucks and everything. And quite often Lola don't even appear on the end credits under the visual effects, because in a lot of cases they don't want people to know that Lola's magic has been weaved on a performer in the film. And because Lola are so good at it, the fact that they're not in the credits, you don't go, oh, that's clever special effects. You just go, oh, they look good for their age. And it's the same with Michael Douglas in Ant-Man. It's the same with Robert Downey Jr. at the beginning of, is it Iron Man 3? Where he looks exactly like he looked in Weird Science. And Tron 2 did not reach that bar by any stretch of the imagination. And I was bitterly disappointed. Acetland 66 said, did they do The Irishman? I don't know, is the simple answer. Let's find out. So Lola did Samuel Jackson in Captain Marvel. Oh, it was Industrial Light and Magic. Well, I guess if you're going to get a special effects house to do your special effects, then Industrial Light and Magic are kind of where you want to go, aren't they? But Lola VFX has become Marvel's go-to de-aging specialist. So 243 titles come up as being manipulated by Lola visual effects. From Game of Thrones, No Time to Die, which is the next James Bond movie, Black Panther. So all the Marvel ones, obviously, because they're kind of done intentionally that way. But a lot of the other ones, you maybe weren't so surprised or weren't so expecting them to be. Skyfall, like, oh yeah, that's going to be Javier Bardem's face, isn't it? They'll have done in that. And Alita Battle Angel was kind of all of Alita, really. And that's a weird movie. I really enjoyed it, but it kind of just stops. Anyway, that is a massive squirrel rabbit hole / whatever else you want to call it that we've gone down. So while Atitlan's track was playing, what I did was I just turned the Korg M3 to one of its orchestra patches, and you can hear the difference between just having individual strings to what I was working with up until I got the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package. So if I go back to the Zoom 3, rehearse. I really should. you kind of get the idea. So I get laughed at. Yeah, January says, "I just meant you say you meant to play it like that. I believe you." Yeah, I should actually rehearse more. I should play that damn thing more. I have spent so much time just using the push in recent years that has been kind of neglected, and my keyboard skills are way more rusty these days than my guitar skills, which is kind of weird because I used to be a keyboard player in bands in the 80s, back in the days. But anyway, enough of that. Ryaka Music says, it sounds like game soundtracks in the 90s. January says, hey, my keyboard skills are trash. I loved your... and in fact, I think I should play that because I really liked this today. The track that I really liked, which I commented on earlier today, is just called First Snow, which is rather lovely. Short and sweet, says Januarius. That is truly lovely, and you cannot claim that your piano skills are non-existent after coming up with something like that. That was truly lovely. So, yeah, and lots of nice comments in the chat too. So January says, well, thank you. Well, my pleasure. It's nice being able, especially because people are going, oh, I haven't heard this, to be able to share stuff. Because this is the thing with 5090. I mean, there are, how many songs did I say there were? 4,699 songs. I've left at present a paltry 470 comments on stuff, and I've probably listened to less than 500 songs in total, because I'm not always playing stuff on a platform where I can go, oh, I need to comment on this. There is so much really good stuff on 5090 this year. It's been a staggering year for quality. It blows me away that there is this level of community, of creativity out there who are doing this for nothing more than the fun of sharing their music and giving people comments about what their music has engendered as a reaction in them. or just making silly comments, or that sounds like, or whatever else. It's just a way of celebrating the process of making musical fun for people. And there was something that I'm going to play it now if I can find which track it was. And I'm just talk amongst yourselves for a minute, because what I'm trying to do is find a comment that I made about a track that was about somebody with Alzheimer's, because my father has Alzheimer's. It seems to be something that is cropping up an awful lot in the experience of people that I know. And I mean, I got the new Fish album this week, and there is a track on that called Garden of Remembrance. And the first time I heard that, I was just in tears. Well done, Januarius, for finding it. Yeah, this is Gunpowder Tea by Eric Stand Up and Nancy Ross. And I'm just going to play you, because this is, you certainly have got my back, Januarius. Thank you, mate. This is called Gunpowder Tea.
Gunpowder tea.
So that's Gunpowder Tea by Stand Up, with vocals by Nancy Rost. Or, yeah, absolutely beautiful. Just as mentioned in the chat, maybe could do with being a bit louder. And Atitlan says could do with remixing to bring the vocal forward. It's, as Riaka Music says, it's okay. Dazed and Confused says, man, that was really good. Like I say, the level at which people are operating at this year just blows me away. It really does. And just so many people have made incredible leaps in what they were doing from even last year. So is it lockdown? Is it the fact that, and I mean, not just musically, but also lyrically, and, you know, those lyrics are so contemplative, so introspective, so about the human condition. Is it a result of lockdown? Is it the fact that we are no longer being distracted by the frantic pace of outside life, that we are finding ourselves in our own heads and are beginning to suss out what it is that we're supposed to be doing? Is this, there is definitely something in the air in terms of just the creative spirit that of needing to find a voice, of finding a voice, and of sharing that voice in a community like this. It's just astonishing to me. It really is. And it's not just having more tools. There's something deeper going on that results in songs like that this year. We're still talking about the mix on the chat. Seems that vocalists often turn down their vocals way in the mix. And I do that. Well, I used to do that. All right, another squirrel. Because this was one thing I was talking to Wobby about on Facebook chat. That it's to do with how we, and again, this is being back inside your head, having an image of what you sound like. And when we grow up, we have an image of what we sound like that is cruelly shattered the first time we hear a recording of our own voices. And the physics reason for it, and it is physics, is simply that when we hear our own voices, we're not largely hearing the vibration of air that is then going round to our ears and coming in through our ears. What we're actually hearing is vibrations that are being conducted through the flesh and bone of our own bodies from our vocal cords and traveling up through the skull into our inner ears. And when sound travels through a denser medium, the frequencies get spread out and it tends to shift the frequencies lower. So the sounds that we hear through our skulls of our own voices are louder than the sounds that our voices make through the air, which is why when you hear yourself for the first time on a tape recording, you go, ooh. And it's taken me a long time to get over that. I don't like the way I sound on a microphone, therefore I'm going to turn it down in the mix. So projecting those emotions and that response onto other people, I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of probably where they're coming from. And it is largely about confidence. But it is also about putting the hours in. So we're back to the 10,000 hours, and let's not go there because there's a whole discussion about whether the Outliers book actually got it right, because even the guy who did the original research said, I think you'll find it's a bit more complicated than that. But as you use one of these things, and especially as I will be doing tomorrow, edit down hours of me just sitting here blathering on about things, you learn what your voice does, and you learn what works for your voice, and you learn what mics work for your voice, and you learn about things like proximity effect, and you learn about things like whacking up the compression. And all of those things will help you to get the most out of your voice. And the more you get something out of your voice, the more confident you will be about using your voice, and the more comfortable you will be in putting your voice higher up in the mix than maybe you were when you started. But where I was going with this is that I realised after talking to Wobby about this that, when we have that internal voice, when we're talking to ourselves in our thoughts, that the voice that I use for myself when I'm conducting my inner monologues now, because my brain has heard so much of my real physical voice out from the real world, coming in through songs and doing these streams, that I'm actually noticing that my internal voice now sounds like what I know I sound like, not what I hear through the bones of my skull, which totally freaked me out for some reason, because it is very odd, but it's how our brains adapt to changes in reality, which is, I guess, back to this flowering of creativity as a result of perhaps our brains changing to the circumstances in which we find ourselves and trying to find some advantage of it. So let me just catch up on the chat, because the chat has been scrolling like Billy-O while I've been blathering on like this. Some nice observations from Ryako Music. It says, the future became unclear and the ending unknown, and it's out of our control, so we have to deal with that feeling of powerlessness. Eris says, I find you just got to keep recording and mixing so you get used to your recorded voice. Yeah, exactly. Atitlan66 adds, and what effects work for you? Oh, God, yes. Ryako Music says, I figure that if I take the time to record vocals, you're going to hear them. Yes, exactly. And Eris says, and then it all becomes about articulation in hyphens. Wobby says, yep, I've got to know myself much more during form and 5090. Dazed and Confused says, I'm fully comfortable sharing just about anything there, not so much anywhere else. Yeah, and that's Wobby says, yes, same. It is a nice, safe place, I think, and that is something, again, to be celebrated, because some people on maybe not so much form, but certainly in 5090, have gone to some pretty dark personal places in lyric writing for 5090 this year. And that is to be applauded and supported. And for us to just say, yeah, we understand, or we are present, we see you, even if we can't understand what those people's experiences that have triggered those lyrics or those songs or those pieces of music could have been. So, January says, nowadays I just record whatever, and when I listen to it, it starts to go, oh, that really should be more like, I just shut it off and stop thinking and post. Dazed and Confused says, we were listening, blather away. Thinking gets in the way of creating, January says, and sharing. Thinking has a place. In fact, it has a very important place in creating. What gets in the way, I think, is when we start second-guessing how those thoughts are going to be received by others. I think that's the filter that maybe we focus on too much, of saying, well, nobody's going to want to hear a song about cats taking over the universe. Why don't I just write a fairly straightforward love song with verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, and do it that way? What I love, again, about 5090 is that come September, most people have gone through that entire process and have run out of the lovey-dovey traditional, hate to use the word, but I'm going to use it, and I'm even going to do air quotes, commercial sounding stuff. And it's like, shit, I still need to do another 15 songs. What am I going to do? well, I've got this musical about cats taking over the world. I may as well do that. And that is why things get insane in 5090 during September. And it's the part of 5090 that I love the most, because they're insane, yes, but they're insanely creative. And I just love it. I absolutely love it. January says, aha, I noticed watching over my making of video is that I don't really think when I'm creating. I just shut up my thoughts and let any ideas come up. It's not me creating that stuff. It comes from somewhere else, maybe God or something. But the purpose of creation for me is channeling, not thinking. I get that. I totally get that. It is you. It's just a part of you that you're not consciously aware of. And there are tracks that I've done. I've done a lot this year, but there have been one or two that I listened to back when I finished them. And it's like, well, I don't know where that came from, but clearly whoever was in charge of that part of the music was way more on top of the ball than I was. So like the track where I wrote 5-6 different sections of an instrumental track, and then at the last minute thought, I wonder what would happen if I dragged that bit onto that bit and played all 5 at the same time, and they all fit. It's like that level of, you do this long enough and your subconscious goes, okay, I see what you're trying to do. I understand where you're going with that. And the trick is to just let it get on with it. It really is. It's don't get in the way. Just let you do your thing. Put your thing down, as one of the tracks that I did based on a Tommy Lee Jones quote from Men in Black in many, many years ago. Was it July? Just let your subconscious do its thing. Let it come up with the weird stuff. And that's why Mel and I were talking about this, about, she was saying, oh, I couldn't improvise. Not going to go there. And improvisation is the prime thing to practice that will enable your subconscious to go, yeah, just get out of the way. Let me do this. And when I was 5 years old and I made a comment on somebody else's track, and I apologize because I cannot remember. No, I know who it was. The track reminded me of being a very small boy at my grandmother's, being maybe 5 or 6. If I was really, really, really good, they would let me play the piano in my grandmother's front room. I would just sit there for what could well have been hours, although it was probably only about half an hour, and just got to know the keys and the shapes and how different notes sounded together. This track, which is by Iamur, which is called The Peach, just completely took me back to that piano. And it's a gorgeous piece of music, so I'm going to play you that one now.
See the peach, imagining how soft and sweet it's gonna be. You so want to taste it, you're fried and you're wasted, so you watch and wait for the perfect second. Touch the fuzz, fingertips only lightly, 'cause you're bruising it, gauging the line between firmness and mush. So you show some restraint and wait for the perfect second. Ideas, the Ideas made diamonds by obsession. Dwell too long, you will always find nothing real will ever match your perfection. So take a bite. No lingering, do it tonight. And while you're there with those sticky fingers, give me a ring and we'll see where it goes. 'Cause right now is the perfect sound. Ideas exist only in the mind. Ideas made diamonds by obsession. Dwell too long, you will always find nothing real will ever match your perfection.
I love that. Absolutely love that track. January says, "Call me Alice." Bar tune. Dazed and Confused says, "Yeah, this guy's stuff always makes me want to break out a lounge seat and a martini. Haha." January says, "Makes me jealous of the piano chops. My goal in life is to get to a point where nobody can make me jealous." Dazed and Confused again says, "It sounds so effortless, and for him, I think it probably is." January says, "There's two ways to achieve that. Either get good or stop caring." Dazed and Confused says, "Stop caring, first step towards getting good." No, I think, January, you're right. That engine that drives us to get better is saying, "Well, I want to do that," and then when you can do that, it's like, "Well, I want to do something that's better than that. I want to not be embarrassed by my own work." And that's kind of what still drives me now. And I've been doing recorded stuff for 2.5 decades now. I listen to my early stuff and I cringe. I really do. And even stuff from Form 10 years ago, it's like, oh dear. I think 2014 was the first year. And that was the year when I bought my first new guitar and a new amp, and I'd just been laid off work, and I decided, because I'd got a redundancy package at the time, it was like, well, I'm just going to sit here and play guitar for 3 months, and that's kind of what I did. And so by the time 5090 came round in 2014, I did not sound like the headfirst only that I'd been in Form, because back then I'd been in work and I hadn't put the hours in. And it is that drive of going, right, I want to sound better. I want to sound like I know what I'm doing. I want to get people to react like you guys are reacting to that piano playing in the chat, of saying, "Oh, wish I could do that." And to be honest, you guys are getting there. We're all getting there. It's just a matter of not giving up, and B, putting the hours in, which, you know, that Korg M3 is looming over my right shoulder and reminding me that I really, 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 really need to sit down and start practicing again. It will happen. It will happen. We will get to the point where we go, "Is that me?" And it is. And you think, "Oh, cool. It'll happen one day." Ryaka Music says, my goal is to become a professional so that I don't care because I will have already done great things. Well, you have already done great things. I mean, yeah, it's just a matter of time. It really is. January says, I listen to my stuff from this 5090 and go, oh dear, but I laugh because what else can you do? Yeah, and I think, it was after Thursday's stream. I thought, you know what? I've done my last song, 65 songs over the course of the last 90 days. From the 4th of July to the 1st of October, I had 60 songs that I was either a participant in or actively wrote, composed, sang, played, performed, recorded, mixed, mastered, whatever. And after the show on Thursday, I thought, lying in bed with the headphones on, with the MP3 files, let's just have a bit of a retrospective, and went through them. And as Januarius says, a lot of them I started playing and about 4 bars in, on average, I would go, oh dear, fast forward, next track. But I noticed as 5090 progressed, the number of times I was going, oh dear, next, was dropping. And I was actually listening to the tracks more often and listening to the songs more often. And yeah, all right, it was 2:30 by the time I finally fell asleep on Thursday night, but I felt good enough about what I'd come up with this summer that I could sleep soundly and say, yeah, that was worth doing. That was something I am proud to have done this summer. And I hope that you guys all feel the same way about the stuff you've done. I mean, you may not have done 60 odd songs. I mean, you has done a tremendous amount. Cindy has done over 200. In fact, if I go, I just want to show you just how crazy some of you people have got. So we'll go to the 5090ers site. I don't know if you know you could do this, but go to the 5090ers site and then just click on the progress twice, and it sorts by the number of songs written. And look at, I mean, so Cinderella and Carlo have both written over 200 songs. Chandra in there with 160, Cool Paradiso with 132. Alex has done stunning work with 128. And our own Dazed and Confused is there over 100. Sunfire and Candle both at 100 exactly. And then there's loads. I'm 18th on the list. It's just astonishing. January says, I used to think that I needed to do the full production for 50 and 90 and form, but I don't do that anymore because it rarely works out. I always want to change stuff. And I finally realised that I'll just do sketches, something that I can listen to later on and work to something great. And sometimes the sketch is so good that you don't want to change anything, like my Beyond the Cherry Trees. Totally get that. There are times this year, and it's the first year I've ever done it, where there are a few tracks that have gone, that I had in my head, right, I'm going to do all those synth tracks, and then there's going to be 3 guitar tracks, and then there's going to be a bass track, and then I'll probably do something on the Juno, and then and I've got this list that just disappears off into the distance of stuff that I have to do to make a song finished. And a few times this year, and it's the first time I felt comfortable enough in what I'm doing to have the confidence to say so, of just going, you know what, this is done. The sketches or not even, I mean, like that first Snow doesn't need anything else. It's perfect as it is. Atitlan66 says, both Cindy and Carlo get a ton of collabs. They do. Wobby123 says, that'll do. Yeah, that's exactly it is. And Days and Confused says, I had planned on just reworking or finishing old stuff this year. I got to one of those. It's totally up to you what you make of 5090. And yeah, you might only have written half a dozen songs, but they're half a dozen songs that the world would not have heard if you hadn't been part of the 5090 challenge, which is the thing, the takeaway, I guess, that we ought to take away from this. Atitlan says, yeah, they're good lyricists. And yeah, I mean, a special shout out. I don't know if he was active. He was active this year, wasn't he? Arthur Rossi? No. So, so Arthur's been very busy. So that's a shame. And I've collabed with Arthur a few times. He's incredibly prolific. And I love his stuff. And yeah, you don't have to be a musician. You don't have to have a room like this to be part of 5090. It's very equal. You can just be a lyricist with a notepad and pen and post stuff, and in a lot of cases it will get more comments than full production numbers from, musos like me who pretend they're an entire prog rock group in their back bedroom. But so it goes. Whereas life hack, write 51 so you'll jump over everyone on that list who wrote 50. You've got me sussed then. I actually have, and this is how sad I am, I actually have a file. It's an Excel spreadsheet in my Dropbox. I keep a tally. Asitlan, good night. I will be winding this up shortly, but oh God, I hadn't realised what time it was. I do apologise. I've been waffling. So, yeah, good night, sir. Yeah, one last thing. So, with 2020's 5090 to a close, I can make the final update to my songwriting tally of all the songs, just in terms of numbers, that I've written. 757, which staggers me, because when I started joining Form, I'd written 3 songs in the past 5 years. So taking part in these challenges really, really will help you to get your hours in them. So Dazed and Confused says, yeah, just saw how long this was too. Great stream. Didn't feel like almost 3 hours. Oh, my goodness me. Yes. Various reactions to my spreadsheet nerdiness. January says, I think you have to get rid of some of them. Believe me, some of them will never, ever see the light of day again, if I have anything to do with it. But on that bombshell, as a certain iconoclastic presenter would say, I think we'll call it a night. So thank you very much for being a part of my stream this evening, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of my 5090 this summer, which has been absolutely great fun. I will see you back here as usual on my Thursday night show, which will probably have new music, because I can't see myself not doing new music over the next couple of weeks. And I have a demo of that new EQ to put together for you, don't I? With that, I will bid you all a very, very pleasant rest of the day / evening, or a good night. And thank you again for being part of this. It really does make a difference when I know that I'm not just screaming into the void. So Take care, everybody. Wherever you are, wear a damn mask. Stay well. Stay safe. And whatever you're doing, stay sane. And I'll see you next time.